the Central Bank of Barbados. Yeah? And I know Governor Greenwich, Most Honourable Kevin Greenwich, the Governor of the Central Bank and his team have been going out into the diaspora by invitation, actually, to come and speak to Barbadians living overseas about the many modes that you can invest in Barbados and how much easier it is, including holding foreign exchange accounts, which a lot of people have not or did not know about previously, that you can actually send money home to Barbados in a foreign exchange account, and you can trade in foreign exchange to make investments. You can then transfer that into your domestic account to make domestic investments. But we also need the private sector to come on board with us, because those are the people into which people want to invest. Yes, people will buy bonds, and we encourage them to buy Barbados bonds, BOS bonds, and so forth and so on. And as the domestic market opens back up in a more robust way, as we come out of COVID and so forth, we'll see some of that. But we also know that there are companies in Barbados that are doing well and that are looking to expand and that are looking for capital. And we need to be able to do that, not just through a senior stock exchange or junior stock exchange, if you ever get that, through other instruments as well. And we think that that is important. We're prepared to lead that. We're prepared to be in the process to work with other ministries to do that, but we need the private sector on board with us. And that is why we do state missions. We're going to be insisting that we do state missions, not just diplomatic visits. We've been given an opportunity to potentially go to Ireland, for example, for a major investment conference. And we have said to them that we want the possibility to bring a private sector mission with us, a team with us, to be able to look at investments, because the Irish have been investing considerably in Barbados. But beyond that, you have the whole of Africa, where we are now going into. So as we forte into that, we want now to make that linkage between the diaspora into Barbados or through Barbados into other places in which we have connections in Latin America and in Africa in particular, where we are setting down anchor. And the Afri-Exim Bank is going to be a critical part of that process. One of the reasons why we are so evangelical about them here in Barbados and in the Caribbean is because they can open up doors for us Barbadians, both nationally here in the domestic space, but also globally in the diaspora, to be able to invest outwardly.
Thank you, Minister. I had actually noticed the increase also to Ireland. I think you answered that question very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. James North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To the Minister and his team, let me, of course, commend the Ministry for the work that they've been doing throughout the last few years. But I wanted to use the occasion to treat to the issue of course, the expansion of our presence around the globe through our missions and our embassies, particularly with respect to a number of strategic cities and countries. And in light of that, many of those cities and countries enjoy a high level of growth. And one of the questions, therefore, I have for the ministry is, what is the strategy, particularly given that it's one of the ministry's key objectives, but with respect to commercial diplomacy, how is the ministry looking to, in this year in particular, be able to attract further investment and at the same time helping businesses in Barbados to tap into the growth in those jurisdictions? Of course, yes, we have a Ministry of Investment, but at the same time, how is the ministry looking to ensure that through commercial diplomacy, that the presence that we have on the ground allows for Barbados to meet a lot of its strategic objectives in this regard?
DG Ford.
Thank you, Minister, for that question. And you ended off by making a key point about the presence on the ground. We have, as we pointed out earlier, We have missions in a number of newer places, having moved away from the traditional partners. And it is true that many of the missions are still small, and that is why we depend so heavily on the partnerships that we enjoy with Invest Barbados and Export Barbados and BTMI. And it is within the framework of those partnerships that we will be pursuing the investment opportunities and the partnerships that we are seeking to realize the strategic objectives set within, and that has been the approach that we've taken in East Africa and in West Africa. The fact is that with persons on the ground, what our colleagues do, they identify the partnerships and they match them with the entity or the agency in Barbados that can develop the relationship and facilitate the type of investment in the niche areas identified. If we can, we understand that we have to operate with limited resources, human and materials, and there are some of our embassies which are still not fully staffed. And so that is why the importance, the country team approach is so important going forward to help us to achieve, in particular, the investment missions through the partnerships that we negotiate and identify.
And I think on top of that, Honourable Member, Minister, look, I think one of the things that we have, as I said before, one of the things that we've been really good at is the political diplomacy. But Barbados has distinguished itself as really being very sophisticated in doing this. The area of commercial diplomacy, however, I think perhaps there's a politeness that crosses over. And so we have not been as aggressive as a country in going after opportunities for investment. My hope is that we change that we really try to build very strategic relationships on concrete things that can be of benefit to the country. I'll give you one example. One area, for example, is in the area of alternative energy. As you know, for many years, we've been having some challenges with the regulatory issues in relation to the production of alternative energy and storage and dispatching into the grid instability. We've now gotten past that stage. And I believe Senior Minister who's responsible will tell you that there's going to be a level of aggressiveness for people to participate in that exercise. That is an area for which substantial investment can come into Barbados. And we have to now almost, even though we don't like doing some of it, we have to silo some of these things and go after them to ensure that we get not just expansion, but quality. And that we get quality investments in specific areas. I think we've done exceedingly well in the area of tourism, hospitality services. We are seeing an influx of investment internationally into our tourism product and our tourism sector. And that has been great. But what about the creative industries? What about the creative industries? We have many, many, many talented people out here. I don't think, honestly, that we have done enough. In fact, I believe we can do, I think most people will concede that we can do a lot more in connecting those persons who are in our creative industries. And when we say creative industries, people feel that we only mean calypso, or the performing arts. But look at the culinary arts. We have things to sell to the rest of the world. One of the things, if you live outside of Barbados for a little bit or travel a lot, one thing people tell you about is how good the Barbados culinary scene is. It is world-renowned. Our festival, our rum and food and rum festival. We see those things happening, yeah? And people come to Barbados for that. We have to export that. We are an exporting country. We earn our living by the export of services. We export more services than we export goods. Every time a tourist lands at the airport and we sell them something, that is an export. Our job is to ensure that we can find investments for those, both inward, foreign direct investment, but also external investment, so that we can, as we say, expand beyond what we call gross domestic product to gross national investment, the GNI. That is where I think, Minister, we have to go, and I agree with you. And in these estimates, we have particularly segmented resources, not enough, but we'll work with what we have until we can get more to ensure that we work with institutions in Barbados, Export Barbados, Invest Barbados, Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, to make those contacts to drive specific areas for which we have some competitive and even comparative advantage to get a return on the investment.
Yep, thank you very much, Minister, for that. And I want to commend you and the ministry for that strategic direction. And just as a follow-up then, on the commercial diplomacy front, as you rightly said, there needs to be a level of aggression in that regard. And perhaps, and I'm sure perhaps it's already happening, but for the purposes of the public, just walk us through what are some of the trainings so as to ensure that the diplomatic corps, which goes out on behalf of the country in different jurisdictions around the world, is able to spot the opportunity or opportunities to bring home, as it were, the opportunity for the country. Because of course, if you're trained in traditional diplomacy, but not necessarily having that eye for not just business, but as you rightly said, the creative sector, energy, and many other areas of national importance to Barbados through the lens of commercial diplomacy, oftentimes we may or may not land the plane, as it were. So just walk us through perhaps the training element to be able to spot. In other words, the retooling of the Foreign Service to be able to meet those challenges and opportunities.
DG4.
Thank you very much, Minister. Minister, you have highlighted, and clearly you've studied it, one of the areas which we have also identified internally as a weakness and an area that needs to be developed even more. Traditionally, Barbados, we could have relied on at that time, there existed the BIDC and Invest Barbados. It was BIDC and I don't remember the name slips me right now. But Minister, you've identified one of the areas where we have perceived that we do need to have more training. And that is why, as part of our retooling, we have identified that those are areas where our human resources need to have more heightened skills. And we have included that in our estimates as one of the focal areas for training, so that even as we are doing that, what we do is that we facilitate the kind of partnerships through the agencies which have the expertise in that area. But yes, you are correct. There are areas where we do need, where there are perceived weaknesses, and where we hope that that we will receive the training necessary to be able to do better, to close the deals, as you have pointed out. But I can tell you, though, that in the Foreign Service, we have also tried to attract a wider variety of skills to the Foreign Service. But as the Minister pointed out earlier in his initial remarks, recognizing the core thrusts of the diplomacy, but we also have looked at attracting persons with other skills to the Foreign Service so that we can have a broader dynamic mix that would help us to achieve the objectives which are there for Barbados in the dynamic and ever-evolving international environment. But yes, one of the areas where we do need to fine-tune and to sharpen our skills is in the area of commercial diplomacy and training our diplomats to be strong commercial diplomats.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
And I think, Minister, one of the things in the process of transformation for the ministry that we specifically have to target in terms of how we do the entire ecosystem of how the ministry operates, is to look at some processes, to change processes to make things more efficient, so that decisions can be taken with a little bit more speed and expedition to be able to deliver, which means looking at all of our internal processes and seeing where bottlenecks and juggernauts exist and transforming those in a way that makes it a lot simpler, clearer, and easier to use, not just for the internal professionals, but also for those from outside, the people who engage us. The other thing is plant. One of the things that we have to do is to ensure that we have plant that is fit for purpose. Go through, I mean, if we've had, Ministry of Foreign Affairs has owned a lot of property overseas. The truth is, a lot of it is aged property. If you go to it, a lot of it is not in the very best shape. And we've been incrementally trying to change that. But we have to accelerate some of that because people can't produce their best if they're not in the best environment. And we need to be able to address those issues and ensure that we have plant not only that is safe environmentally and conducive to high levels of production, but also has the modern tools for which people can be able to engage the rest of the world, because other partners are doing that. Speaking of partners, we spoke about that already, the type of partners that we choose. We also have to look at the type of people we retain. Yeah? The traditional diplomat, I'm saying this advisedly because I'm sure the staff has not told me to say this, but may I say that the traditional type of person that we have attracted for the diplomatic service will change once we shift into a different mode, particularly in the commercial diplomacy. We will need more economists in the ministry. We will need more technical management specialists in the ministry. You know, before you used to say, come to foreign affairs, you do political science, you have a master's, and maybe if you have a language, Spanish or French, you go to the top of the list. Now, we as ministers operate in the area of policy. But that policy has to, we don't get in personnel matters. But that has to change. The policy about who we hire has to change because the world is changing. So we have to have people who can adapt, people who can go into the space and immediately be able to engage at all levels. We really do need to have some of that. So the overall policy then has to change. And that's why I said the toolkit and the playbook. Sorry for these little simple terms, but we have to say this for the average citizen. The playbook, the thing that we use as the strategy to ensure that we are able to make impact, and the tools we are using have to change. Because the world is changing right in front of us. We're not going to read it in a book by some anthropologist or political scientist in 10 years' time. The thing is happening before our eyes, on our phones, on our cable TVs, or whatever they watch now, the internet TV and all that kind of thing. It is happening. People tell us in Barbados about things, people in New York and London and elsewhere tell us about things that happen in Barbados. Somebody gets, unfortunately, damaged somewhere, and somebody from overseas saying you and tell you, did you hear there was an accident in Colorado Road? Right outside number 1 Colorado Road, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by the way. And you were there saying, really? And you are in the building. You didn't even know anything happened outside. So this is the reality that we're living in. And therefore we have now to match that by working not in siloed ways or with inappropriate human resources, not that you put people down, but we have to find the appropriate skill sets. So if you're driving business and investment, you can't have a person who does not have an understanding or training in how to attract, how to go after investment, how to understand how markets function and so forth and so on, and you put that person there, you know, you are doing a disservice to the person. Because you're expecting them to deliver something that they have absolutely no understanding about. And then you complain that it is not being done. We can't do that to people. We can't do that to ourselves. We have to begin now to change things to match where we are at. And I'm saying our Prime Minister, for example, has opened up doors for us. There are linkages and contacts that we have now that we did not have 10 years ago. And I can't presage to say that that is going to exist forever. So now that we have an opportunity to do things and to take advantage of those things that have been opening up for us, we have to strike right now. Not next week, not next year, not in 2 years. It has to happen now. And therefore, if we have to come back to the Honorable House, to the Prime Minister, the ministry to say, look, we've done this and we've seen how things have moved, we need to shift this or shift that, then that's what we have to do. Because right now is the time for action, and I think that Barbadians expect this of us, and we are going to be working pinpoint to ensure that we do so. And I can give you the assurance, Minister, that following on from what Senior Minister would have done, Honourable Member for St. James Central, and the work that he would have done specifically, we are going to be picking up that work and pushing that aggressively to ensure that that transformation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is expedited to its most logical conclusion, to the benefit of Barbados. That is what has to happen. So trust me, the next year, God willing, we are all here, we're going to have a different conversation. We really are going to have a different conversation because we have to drive those things. They're embryonic, yes. They're setting out their green shoots now. It's been a long, arduous task, but we can't drop the ball. And I give you the assurance as Minister that we are not going to drop the ball because we've worked too hard to do these things. We met very recently with an expert advisor for us in the UK, is it? I won't call the name because I don't have permission to call the name. But I mean, if you hear the kinds of things, he's an advisor to the Prime Minister's office, but if you hear the things that he is proposing ought to be done in a space that we already know, the kind of avenues that we can open up, the kind of connections that we can make, I say we have absolutely no excuse. We really do have no excuse. We really have to get it done or else we fail. And failure is really not an option.
Thank you, thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Michael Central.
Thank you, Chair. On the outset, let me first start by commending the ministry for all of their hard work in enhancing Barbados's international profile. But what I really want to focus on, and you did, Minister, you did touch on it earlier, in terms of what are the tangible benefits for persons like those found in my community, the small man, the small entrepreneur, the working man. So what I want to focus on is job opportunity. I read about the project, the Early Health City project, so perhaps if you could use this opportunity to tell Barbadians and the people in St. Michael Central what that project will be about, how many jobs, for example, will be created, what percentage will be given to Barbadians, and if there is a procurement protection established to ensure that local contractors would benefit.
DG4?
Thank you very much for that question. Thank you. The Early Health City Initiative, that is an initiative which has emerged through our ambassador to the UAE and some partners that she has identified as part of the efforts to strengthen Barbados's own, I would call it, health diplomacy. And this is a transformational pharmaceutical project which is being executed in partnership with Export Barbados, and to try to capitalize on the, should I use the term brain trust, by the capacity of Barbadians to work in this area, because Barbados does not have large manufacturing spaces. So we have identified smaller niche projects where we can work with experts to help to, to develop our own, to help to develop, the kind of refined processes in which we could participate. I don't have the technical details because I must confess to you, it's not my area of expertise. but certainly from what I understand of the project, there will be significant spin-off to Barbados and to Barbadians, which could see opportunities for persons in your community, especially for the younger graduates and persons who are interested in STEM, and also, even if not at the graduate level, persons who certainly persons who have like computer skills, that type of thing. So what I can promise to do for you, Honorable Member, I can try to see if I can get the details of the project that we can share with you, and maybe I can organize a conversation or presentation with the group for you and for any other the honorable members who might be interested, so that you can have more details on the project. Because certainly it is something which is one of the newer transformative projects which we are looking for. As the previous speaker, the representative for St. James Central, identified that commercial diplomacy is one of the angles which we really have to dig deeper in. And this is one of the types of projects that we're trying to develop in that area. And St. George North, sorry, St. James North, our former ambassadorial colleague, now the representative of St. James North. But this is one of the, certainly one of the transformative types of projects that we are looking to attract more of them to Barbados. And we can certainly work through the minister to organize a presentation for you. Hope that is helpful.
I would very much appreciate that information. Thank you for that. So the next question, which would be a sub question, would be in terms of the internship programs that I see made reference to. I see that there would be some university graduates being taken on. So my question is really to go into details about that a little more. How many students will be taken on yearly? What would they have to do to sign up? What would be some of their the requirements that they would need other than having the university degree in order to qualify? That type of information would be useful.
Are you referring to internships in the ministry or to the particular project?
The one regarding the FSA contracts, and then to build them on then further to become the foreign service officers.
Yeah, I can let PS speak to that, but I could say that I can honestly tell you that the internship program is one of the most exciting areas of the ministry. And we welcome the opportunity every year to bring new graduates in. I can actually tell you that we have officers here on the team who actually were interns in the ministry. I can't see. With one of the officers, Tricia Welch, was my intern, and she's now a senior foreign service officer. She had served as an intern in the ministry and in our mission to the United Nations. So the Foreign Service Associate, that's one of the programs that we've identified as a way of retaining our interns, because some people have come to serve for a short period, but they may have graduated from school and they may not have a job yet, and they want to stay on at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because when they come into the ministry as interns, we throw them right into the deep end. They're exposed to everything that we do. And once they sign the Secret Act, and we warn them early about, because they're exposed to so much important information, we warn them about what they're not allowed to divulge. And the program, traditionally the interns came only during summer, but now because of the heavy workload, we find that we have been having interns year round. The qualifications, it has been easier to have interns who are at the university level, certainly for the type of work we do, because interns who are not at that level might require more supervision, and the ministry is like a treadmill. There's always work to be done, and we are moving quickly to get things done. So it's better to have people who already have a knowledge of, I would say, at the university level, not necessarily international relations, but exposure to policy, so that it is easier to supervise them and easier to give them projects to be done. How is it done? They can send an application to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to the Deputy Permanent Secretary, who also heads the Human Resource and Administration Department. The address of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is very easy, Barbados@foreign.gov.bb. or they can apply to the permanent secretary, ps@foreign.gov.bb, or to dg@foreign.gov.bb. And we will get those applications where they're supposed to go. I can tell you that we have as many applications for internships as we have for foreign service officer positions. But we always find the more the merrier, because we enjoy having them at the ministry as much as they enjoy coming. Thank you.
Thank you. That was truly inspirational to hear that you can start off as an intern and then be sitting in the parliament during the estimates.
Okay.
So my final spin-off question from that then would be, what is the small business strategy? So I did read about the implementation of the Samoa agreement. So how does an entrepreneur like the one you would find in St. Michael Central benefit from that type of agreement, or even CARICOM Colombia negotiations, for example? Can you bring it local?
We will invite the FT buyer to answer that one.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the question. Barbados is signatory to a number of agreements, and the EU agreement is a development agreement. It identifies specific areas where support is provided to the business community, to civil society, and partnerships throughout in various areas. We have duty-free access to the European market at present. We've had since, well, we always did, and we have it through the EPA since 2008. So all of our products enter the EU once they meet the criteria, free of duty. If there are any impediments, we also have an avenue to discuss and negotiate those with our counterparts. We have access similarly, obviously through CARICOM, so we can trade with the Caribbean community members. I will add that the relationship with CARICOM goes even deeper, as you're aware, where we can work in CARICOM states. At the moment, we can move freely with 3 other member states. We can trade with all the member states free of duty. Any business person can set up business in any CSME participating state. We can go tomorrow and register your small business in any of the 12 participating states. So that permission, that facility has been in place since 2007. So we are moving ahead in terms of opportunities for business persons, for young people to trade, to provide their services and businesses across borders in various levels of complexity, whether it be a small individual, as small as, baking, sewing, as small as the enterprise may be, or a large corporation. That is in place in Barbados and across the community. Thank you.
Thank you. So my final question then would be, in terms of the free movement agreement that we just had in October of 2025.
Honourable Member, is this another question? You would have had your 3 questions, follow-up
Very well.
questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just on the first question that you asked, because I was searching for it, on the early health city Barbados issue with the UAE, we do have a presentation which we can share. I think DG made that point. It is quite condensed, and we will make sure to make it available to all members of the House. Yeah, because we feel that even though you asked the question, there are some really serious possibilities in there along the lines that you've asked for. So we are going to make that available to all members of the House and arrange for a follow-up presentation after you've had a chance to digest the information. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The question, and I'm not sure if I should call it spin-off. I'm hearing different terms used, and I'm still not clear, even since yesterday. But I'm talking about resource allocation within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. I was not given any message, but I'm asking a question about the mission in Geneva only because I happen to be fairly familiar with the mission. And it has to do with what appears to me to be a significant volume of work, but with a declining staff complement. And I'm just wondering, I'm seeing what appears to me to be an increase, a small increase in the allocation. I think this is subprogram 690069. But I'm wondering what is happening to be able to allow the mission and the officers there to be able to carry out their functions. I ask the question because, again, of what I see, but also because of what I see, we have taken the decision in my ministry, Ministry of Labor, to carry the labor load with some assistance, but recognizing their challenges and recognizing what Minister you said is the one Barbados approach, so that this is not labor versus foreign affairs, but I just wondered what were the plans for augmenting or strengthening the capacity of a mission that carries a significant load.
As you well know, Minister, thank you very much for your question. And you are, I know with much interest that you did say you weren't given a message to bring. But even if you were, even if you were, it would be a true message. It would be a good message to bring. Yes, in terms of personnel, some of our missions are indeed understaffed, and we remonstrate. Let me put it that way, with the authorities, with higher authorities, about the possibility of having that capacity boosted up. Unfortunately, we cannot on our own take that decision, because if we could, we would do it tomorrow. But suffice it to say, within the exigencies of the budget which the government has to operate with, and of course, the fiscal discipline is always key in these things. We will continue to press because there are some stations at which enhanced resources are required. Geneva is one, because of the sheer amount of agencies you have to cover, subject areas, disciplines, and so forth and so on. And so anytime you fall below a certain level, you feel it. It becomes obvious. And I think that is the case. And so we will continue to work with our colleagues at the Civil Service. The ministry responsible now, I believe it is Human Resources, is now style, to ensure that we can find pathways to increase that level. In the interim, however, there's at least one and possibly two additions that we can make, that we're proposing to make very, very shortly to assist us in several areas. And one of those areas, of course, is in the area of health. The labor portfolio, the Honourable James North, as a former ILO person himself, knows, and indeed as the former ambassador, knows that is an area that needs constant, strong representation. And so we're also going to be looking in that particular area to add. I can also tell you from my own experience that Washington, D.C. has also fallen a little bit below the complement that we require, and covering, say, for example, the OAS alone consumes a considerable amount of time, never mind Capitol Hill, all of the specific secretaryships, state, treasury, health and human services and so forth, and then of course the White House. So we need to be able to do that. Of course, in Havana, for reasons that may be a little bit more obvious than others, there's only one person there. So there's work, you're right, that we have to do to bring that complement up, because we can't achieve the objectives and the estimates if we do not have the staff complement. But what we will do, though, however, is that even as we remonstrate to have those positions filled, we will have, maybe unfortunately, but we will have to ask headquarters officers to do a little bit more, to carry a little bit more of the weight in accompanying their colleagues in the distant lands to ensure that our mandate is executed, because it really is difficult. And if we, again, and I go back to it, I said I'm going to be talking about it ad nauseum, if we use a Barbados country approach, I think we can negate some of those concerns, because we have a whole cadre of people working across ministries and departments in Barbados at a technical level that can assist. And it may cost a little bit in terms of the travel budget, but if we need to send somebody up to accompany the staff there to get things done and to ensure that a particular subject area or discipline is covered properly, then we will have to do that. You have to draw somebody from the Ministry of Labor, if you have to draw somebody from the Ministry of Finance, if you have to draw somebody from some other ministry, then if we have to do that, then we will have to do that in the interregnum until such time as we are able to get the backup to the staff complements that we require. Yeah?
Thank you very much. You sounded as though you were saying that you would take up some of the bill of the Ministry of Labor, because at the moment we pay our own way. No support from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I will say, and I must say, that headquarters in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is very, very supportive of the Ministry of Labor and our efforts. So we have no difficulty either at the level of the mission or at the level of capital where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is concerned. I was just concerned about their occupational health, given that I'm minister responsible for that area. A related question, because this deals with resource allocation again, I was wondering, and it kind of piggybacks on the question on the diaspora, but given the limited number of bodies, of people doing the work, I recall a situation when the UK imposed the air passenger duty. I remember a Prime Minister who you, Minister, worked with in a previous life, actually going to the UK, I was in tourism at the time, and engaging the diaspora in the lobbying efforts against the air passenger duty, to the point where he encouraged them, and we in tourism supported him, asking members of the diaspora to indicate to their representatives how they were going to vote with respect to support or not support or non-support for the air passenger duty. So I'm wondering if there is an appetite for using a similar strategy, that is to say, to involve the diaspora almost on a political level, not in partisan politics, but at a political level with respect to helping Barbados to achieve its objectives in the foreign affairs space.
Yes, Minister. I can answer that, but the PS is so keen on replying that I'm going to give her the opportunity to do so right now.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joyanne Skinner, and I am the Acting Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. To the Honourable Member, indeed, this is actually true. Our diaspora is very keen to represent Barbados's interest in very much the same way that those of us who are trained to do so do. And because they are not necessarily always au fait with the specific issues of interest or concern to Barbados, it is important that we inform them and keep them informed. I think communication is key in how we do so. And if we keep them engaged on the matters that are of interest to us, they are able to represent those interests to their political representatives and also to others that have an interest in Barbados. We often say that the diaspora is really Barbadians abroad, as well as friends of Barbados, people who have an interest in Barbados. So it is key to what we do and how we engage our diaspora, but it isn't the only way in which the diaspora is critical. But this is an area that we recognize we have to pay even greater attention to, because the number of issues on which we have to engage our international partners continues to grow, and as the landscape becomes even more dynamic, especially with challenges, we have to find those who can well articulate our interest and do so at the level at which they're at to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Member for St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me congratulate the senior minister on his appointment and his team as well. And let me go on to congratulate the former minister, member for St. James Central, and also to recognize the work done by the member for St. James South in this very important ministry. My question, first question, Senior Minister, relates to Barbados's foreign policy and the whole issue of military and political conflict that has occurred in the world around, and I can call Palestine and Israel. But more importantly, we have had to be very cautious with our responses. And my question relates to how should we, as a small country, balance neutrality and moral responsibility when responding to power conflicts in the world? That's my first question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. You know, in many ways, it's a difficult question, but it's also relatively easy. I'll tell you why it is difficult first, and that is obvious. It is difficult because of the level of uncertainty that exists in how and where and with what we have to operate. When traditional partners diverge from, and I'm using my language as diplomatically as I can, when traditional partners, yes, diverge from what we would consider to be customary norms of engagement, for whatever reason, maybe certainly in their view, for legitimate reasons, it's part of national interest, national policy, whatever the case may be, and they are large enough to cause seismic shifts in the way countries relate to each other and to them, then you have to, as a small, vulnerable country, you have to sit up and take stock. You can't pretend that these things don't exist. Yeah? We don't set the course for other countries. Other countries, foreign policy and national policy is the sovereign right of every country. All we can do as a member of the collection of nations in the world is to ensure that our core principles, this is where it gets a little easier for us, that you set core, fundamental, and philosophical principles by which you stand as a country. You know, there's a usual cliche saying, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. We have to ensure that the world knows what Barbados stands for. And, you know, people have gotten maybe tired of hearing the friends of all, satellites of none mantra. In fact, I heard somebody say in the calling programs today that it is the biggest set of nonsense they've ever heard. Now, if ever there was a reason to recommend you not to listen to calling programs, that might be one of them. But I go on to say that the reason why we have these things as first principles is because we want to engage the world as a maturing democracy that understands that every country in the world, big, small, or in between, has a place. And that the way we engage with other countries is based on what our philosophical view of the world is. That all countries should be able to participate in the patrimony of the world. That we ought to draw on the resources shared as they are between all countries of the world. That even as there is geographic and economic and even political asymmetry among countries, that is, that we are not all the same, we don't have the same resources, we don't have the same powers, and so forth and so on. Even as there is asymmetry among countries, there is an equalizing factor that exists among states. That is our sovereign right to determine who we are, what we are, and how we will be. And that is the grand norm. That is the lawyers will tell you about the grand norm. That is the grand of what our foreign policy is based on. That we are not here to pick fights, even though we may become entangled in them as collateral damage. Because you know, they say, it's an old saying that when the elephants fight, the only people who suffer is the grass. Well, in the context of global geopolitics, we may be the grass. But at the same time, we know that good savanna grass, even when it is crushed, it still rises. And so we have to position ourselves, not to take up fire rage, as we were saying in Barbados, for A or B. That's not what we are about. We are about a rules-based order, because as a small country, and I think Prime Minister said it well on the campaign trail, if you send your child to nursery, to primary school in infants, you don't expect the class 4 child to come and beat at your child and take away the lunch or whatever little coppers you may give them to buy a sweetie or two. But if you don't set rules in the school, that is precisely what will happen. So when we say rules-based order, we are saying that countries collectively, either in their regional dispensations or in their multilateral dispensations, in their global dispensations, ought to set rules by which we are going to operate. Otherwise, the mighty will crush the weak. And that is the fundamental basis of them moving forward. And why do we say this? Because as a country that has come through the experience of slavery and colonialism, we know what it is to be subjugated. And we're not going back there. So we have to find like-minded countries. And that is what this whole thing is about. This is what the foreign policy is about. Finding like-minded countries to work with, to build alliances, to push back against the mighty. We are not picking fights, but we are defending our honor. And in this space, we will do so by strategic partnerships. Whilst working with everybody. So we are friends of all, hail fellows, well met, but satellites of none. We will not trumpet this ism, that ism, this doctrine, that doctrine. That's not our disposition. Our thing is to ensure that we protect the interests of our people, protect the interests of our region, and in fact undergird what is a Caribbean civilization in the context of the world. That is what we are about. And if we are not doing that, sir, I tell you, we might as well shut the shop and go home. And right now, the shop is not shut. All the doors are open for business. That is where Barbados is, and that is where we are going to go.
Thank you, Minister. The two phrases, the two words, I should say, neutrality and moral responsibility, you seem to have focused heavily on moral responsibility. I don't have a difficulty with that, but well articulated, sir. My next question relates to trade and sanctions. We've been able, as a small island developing state, to navigate trade relationships with countries.
Honorable member, is this a new question or a
No,
follow-up question?
it is related, sir. It is related. It is related.
Proceed.
Thank you, sir. We've been able to navigate certain trade relationships with countries that have been under sanctions. Sanctions have been imposed on these countries, but we've been able in the past to navigate still because of our sovereign focus. But I am seeing a shift, and we use the phrase geopolitical challenges in the world. Do you foresee, and let me add not just the geopolitical challenges in the world, but what is coming to the region as a serious powerhouse? Do we foresee any challenges in terms of trade relationships in this new dispensation? Like I said, what is coming to the region as a powerhouse? Do we foresee any challenges with countries that sanctions have been imposed upon, will be imposed upon? Do we foresee any challenges in terms of maintaining our sovereign base in forming trade relationships with these countries? And I can hit the nail, just call one Cuba. You know, let's talk, Senior Minister.
I kind of know that, I kind of sense that that's the direction that you were going in. Look, you know what, we've had principled positions on this for years. Look, we can't hide it under a bushel. It's been there. We voted in United Nations, our vote is open, our voice has been open in relation to what we do with Cuba and why, yeah? And that vote to ask the United Nations family to call for the lifting of those sanctions, that a blockade as they call it, has gone on for many years. And we can't say that we're not proud of what we have done. We did it for cause and for good reason. Truth is, because of the blockade, we've not done a whole lot of trade with Cuba because it's simply very difficult to do. You know, but in a funny way, and I mean, we don't know what may happen, right? Because things are very fluid, and CARICOM heads have discussed this issue, and they raised it with Secretary Rubio when we had a special meeting with him last week. There's a potential that changes are going to happen. And those changes, we don't know what they are. And we can't presage to say what they are. What we can do, however, is to ensure that we continue to monitor the situation, maintain our position in relation to sanctions and other issues which have been affecting the Cuban state, express our solidarity with them, ensure that we work to ensure that no disaffected humanitarian crisis exists in the country for whatever reason, to contribute as nations in the CARICOM region to ensuring that we support ordinary citizens in Cuba to be able to survive and prepare ourselves to work for a solution that would be to the benefit of the people of Cuba. That's where we have to be in this space. This is not, a game of chance. It is not a game. It's a very serious thing. And you've raised a very serious question. And we are treating it not just as individual countries, but we're treating it as a region, because we have all had relations with Cuba. And many of them have been very beneficial. We know during COVID what happened. We know that. And therefore we're not going to turn our backs on our friends. We're not going to pretend that we don't have those relationships. But we are going to work with all sides to ensure that whatever happens, the people of Cuba are come out the better for this in the end. That is as much as I can say in the circumstances. I know you pose it as a trade question, but truthfully, it goes beyond just trade. It is a deeper question, and it is happening right in our neighborhood. And we can, we will do the stuff that we need to do, but we need to have an open, very clear-eyed understanding of, the directions in which this can go. These goodly folk you see behind here from the CARICOM desk and so forth, they're working every day with our staff in Cuba to ensure, one, that they're safe, of course, and taken care of, but two, that we have the kind of intelligence for which Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Prime Minister's office, and others can be able to make decisions based on real-time intelligence about what is happening in this hemisphere where Cuba is concerned. Because, there's a saying which we use, today for me and tomorrow for you. So I will leave it there. I think I should exercise what little diplomatic skills I have and leave it right there. But just to say, I thank you for that question. It was very pointed, but it gave me an opportunity to say something that, otherwise might not have been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Minister and team. I'll pause for now. Come back tomorrow.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
Beg to second that.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Reported progress and request leave to sit again. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 20 to 6.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 20 minutes to 6. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 20 minutes to 6. This sitting is resumed. We revert to Standing Finance Committee.
We resume Standing Finance Committee. Honorable Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to express my appreciation to the ministry. It has done a lot of work, but I don't think that Barbadians really truly understand how the ministry impacts their everyday life. And there are two benefits that I would have wanted to hear some discourse on. One, I think may take too long, and I would want to recommend that you put together some kind of package for television and to be able to share, and that is what is happening with CARICOM. We hear bits and pieces as we make little steps, but people lose sight of the overall picture of how much we have done and how far we have come and what is the true value and benefit of CARICOM to us, including how many of our enterprises depend on the trade with the OECS and our service providers and so on. So I don't expect at this late hour for you to do an in-depth presentation on it, but I would like to strongly recommend that something is put together and shared with the country, because they need to know what are the benefits and why all of us need to work to make CARICOM work. A shorter question on the benefits that you would have time to answer would be the issue of scholarships. Small as it may be, it is so transformative in the lives of Barbadians, because through your ministry, a significant number of scholarships are attracted to this country and made available to ordinary Barbadians who could not ordinarily afford to be able to go to those universities and get the type of training that is offered. So I would like to offer the opportunity to share on that, some of the scholarships that we have been able to attract, and if there's further work that you want to do to promote them more in relation to the population so that more people are aware of them. Thank you.
So I will give the officials an opportunity to speak to. First of all, let me say that the request that you made, Honourable Minister, is very important, and I think that was something that was a point that was made earlier by one of the other honourable members in relation to the amount of work that the ministry does, how it relates to ordinary Barbadians, particularly in our relationships, and especially in CARICOM, in the OECS in particular. In fact, I'm an old school foreign policy person, and I must say I have a soft spot for the OECS in relation to how important they are positionally, geographically, and on integration ways for Barbados. It's a major market for us. We have so many things in common, and I know there have been forays into deeper integration between Barbados and the OECS. It's never really happened in the way in which some people would have envisioned it, but I don't think it is something that we can leave off the table. And, former Prime Minister Owen Arthur was fond of saying we have to make the regional integration movement a lived experience. And Barbadians live it every day. They go into the OECS people come here, we work. We are also doing deepening links, for example, with Guyana. President Ali, one of our informal conversations with Prime Minister Motley when we were as we were saying, Barbados alignment a little bit, was making the point that, that Barbadians have such a historical connection to Guyana. You know, many families have exchanged spaces both here and there. And that at present, other Caribbean territories are penetrating Guyana. And that Barbados, that has an open door, is not doing that as much as we ought to. So you see that there are opportunities there for us. I will let Officer Gittins, yes, who covers the CARICOM desk. No, Sandra, I'm going to go to you first. To speak about, you know, what has happened in relation to the free movement that we've done, where we are in terms of what the statistics look like, but how it is unfolding so that Barbadians understand, because there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of talk out there, but we need the empirical data and the facts about what is happening, because there are very interesting things that can evolve there for us. So I would let her speak about that. And then on the scholarships, another very important point. You know, scholarships are offered by countries all over the world through Foreign Affairs. And I mean, I've not had a chance to look at the files since I've come, but I really do hope that we're taking full advantage of those scholarships and ensuring that Barbadians get out in the rest of the world to gain skills free of cost, usually for those countries. So I will let the officers speak to that specifically. Sandra, please.
Thank you, Minister. Chair Sandra Gittins, Senior Foreign Service Officer. With respect to the full free movement regime, on the 1st of October last year, 2025, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines enter into the enhanced cooperation arrangement regime, which means that the citizens of those 4 countries can move freely and work and reside in each other's country. The host country will provide primary education to primary and secondary education, as well as health, especially when it comes to the case of emergency health. I can tell you that in reviewing the figures, and we work very closely with the Ministry of Labor, who tracks the movement, and with the Immigration Department. And the influx that we heard people speaking about has not happened. The last figures we were told about were 319 persons, and of that 319 persons, 241 were nationals of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that lived here for some years, and they are using that regime to regularize their status. With respect to our sister country, Dominica, only 40 persons have so far into Barbados, and with respect to Belize, the figure was 0, and that is at the time of us preparing for the recent heads of government meeting. With respect to Barbadians traveling to those countries, only 5 persons have sought to take up status in Dominica, and those were 5 persons that already reside in Barbados, in Dominica. But I made the joke to my colleagues that that figure has climbed to 8, because when our ambassador to CARICOM, Ambassador David Commichon, recently presented his credential, we were given indefinite status when we arrived in Dominica. So I can move tomorrow and decide to live and work freely in Dominica. So when we speak about persons in Vauxhall and persons in Coverley and your other constituencies, the opportunity is there for you to move to 3 other member states, Belize, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and operate like a national of those countries, where you receive all the benefits and entitlement as a person living in that country, born in that country would. So the free movement regime is working and is doing what it is supposed to. The CARICOM single market, the regional integration project is realizing the dream that our founding fathers spoke about, and that was one of the things. The free movement is important. It's an economic vehicle for Barbados. We rely very heavily on our CARICOM member states as it relates to trade, and therefore all of us have a role to play to ensure the implementation of the regimes. Let me also inform that at the heads of government, the skilled national categories was extended to now include persons in the aviation field. This means that you can, if you are a pilot, there's a whole list of persons, about 10 or so categories. If you're maintenance, communications, navigation, surveillance personnel, a certified aviation security instructor, flight operations instructor, hazard material instructor, aviation security inspector, airworthiness inspector, accident investor, etc. You can also now obtain your skilled national certificate to work in any of the CARICOM member states. And this is a specialized area and is an important area for the regional integration movement. But what is also important to know is that the heads have approved and agreed to the CARICOM industrial policy. The CARICOM industrial policy is supposed to enhance our economic diversification as well as to foster indigenous growth and address industrial sectors. And there are 12 key sectors that have been identified, and I'm going to be very deliberate in identifying those, because again, these are the areas in which we speak about entrepreneurs doing business, in which we are asking about opportunities, and I'll list them. Agri-food, fisheries and processing, construction, culture and the creative industry, digitization, education and human capital development, energy, health and well-being, mobility and transportation, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, non-food manufacturing, research, development, and innovation, and tourism. And these are all areas that we at the national level have identified. So I just want to convey the message that the regional integration project is working, and that we are seeing growth happening. Barbados has lead responsibility for the implementation of the CARICOM single market and economy, and Barbados intends to do the work to ensure that all the benefits are realized under that regime. Thank you.
Yes, on scholarships. Really.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Tricia King. I'm a Senior Foreign Service Officer at the Ministry. Just to say that, thank you, Minister, for the question. The scholarships are very important, and we do receive quite a few of them, quite a number of scholarship offers, which we obviously then pass on to your ministry. We get quite a few from our traditional partners, our European partners. China in particular offers a large number of scholarships to our students. India as well. I can also say that we get a number of training offers for public officers, which is also very important. Singapore and Malaysia, India as well. I can single out as offering a large number of scholarships and training offers for our persons in a number of areas. I just wanted to take the opportunity to say it is very important for the ministry to be informed of those areas where training is needed, where we need the scholarships, where we need the training. We have some of our partners are willing to build training opportunities, build training programs around our needs if we just articulate those needs to them. So once this information is given to the ministry, we are very willing in our discussions with our partners to have those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will certainly be liaising with the ministry to be able to submit some of the areas that we need for our economic growth sectors, and we would want to collaborate with you on identifying not only the issues of scholarships, but also the technical assistance that we're going to need to be able to build out the modern economy. So thank you, and I really trust that we will get a beautiful presentation that we put on the media to discuss CARICOM and all that we do, all of the associations and groupings that are there that deal with different technical areas that we can benefit from. I think the Barbadian public needs to know what is available and how much progress we have made. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know the hour is getting late. I just have two questions to the Minister, but first let me thank you for your very forthright presentation. I note that your ministry is placed at number 111 in the estimates, so I welcome you in this position. At Davos, at the World Economic Forum, the Prime Minister of Canada stood in front of the world and basically made a declaration of independence from the American-led international order. What we are witnessing right now is a bit of a conflagration of the rules-based system of the international order. What it will settle into is yet unknown, but we have come as close as we can come to what the great Caribbean reggae artist immortalized the words of a former Ethiopian leader, that the rule of international morality has now become a fleeting illusion to be pursued. The idea that America protects its allies is kind of over. The idea that the middle power should accept the Washington Consensus is apparently no finish. And we are seeing Russia and China now being more and more marginalized in terms of the strategic realignment going on in international relations. As small countries, we, as you have said, we extol those principles of the rule-based international order and our values. We have held fast to the concept of friends of all, satellites of none. That has always been about our strategic alignment and advancing Barbados' interests. My question to you, Minister, Senior Minister, first is, how can friends of all and satellites of none exist in a world that appears to be shifting the rules-based international order? And secondly, you speak about our reaffirming our commitment to multilateralism in a more fragmented world where the realities of what we are going to have to deal with have not yet settled. So I want to know what is our position as we extol friends of all, satellites of none, based on the shifting realities in international relations. Thank you.
Extremely profound questions from the Honourable Member. I really take them in the spirit in which they were asked, because I think it is extremely important for us to understand that, you know, the world order to which we have become accustomed is dismantling. Now, truth is, for people who operate in this space, certainly those of us who are students of international politics, and who've studied geopolitics in particular know that, have come to expect that from time to time, there will be a deconstruct of particular global orders and a reconstruct of. This is not new, it has happened before. The Bretton Woods system was not always in existence. There was something that was there before that, and there was something that was before that too. The constant, however, has been to move towards a civilization where shared values, common norms, central and consistent conventions would bind countries. That is the idealism of the world. That's what we expect. In the context of what is currently happening, we may appear to be at a moment where there is a disorderly disintegration of the global order. However, I would caution that we do not throw, as Shakespeare would say, our sweaty nightcaps in the air and scamper around in despair. Why? Because there are a lot of us who know better and who know how to do better. And how do you do better? By building a coalition of the willing. Those countries that believe in a rules-based order, those countries that believe in a global order that recognizes the asymmetry of countries and are prepared to give concessions where they are necessary to help those who are less fortunate than themselves to be able to manage. If we can build commonality among those states, then we have an opportunity to ourselves, even as that global order is disintegrating and something else is emerging, to produce a better result. That is what Barbados is doing. That is what we are encouraging CARICOM to do. That is what we are working with like-minded small states in the V20, in the small vulnerable states group, in all of these other entities, WTO and UN and so forth, and the GRULAC and all of these fancy things. The basic thing is that we are building partnerships to be able to withstand that disintegration, whole base, and when the dust is settled, to come out better through those partnerships. Yeah? If we play, Honourable member is very familiar with cricket, at least the administrative side. I can't recall you being a cricketer yourself. You might be, just forgive me if you are. But if you go fishing at every ball that turns outside the off stump, you soon will be caught behind. And then some balls may appear to be drifting down the offside, but may cut back in and wrap you on the pads and you're out. LBW. We have to have a close back to the pad and play straight down the line, and know when to shoulder arms on the ball that is coming, because it will seem, and it is seeming now, because the wicket has been disturbed. And our goal is to ensure that we bat the early overs out in the morning while there's moisture on the wicket until midday comes, and then we can play some strokes. Yeah? That is where, no, but seriously, that is what we have to do. It's a waiting game, it's intelligence, it's gauging, it's looking at the pitch, it's seeing. You look at the bowler as well. You know when the fella's getting frustrated, when he's getting tired, so you have to wait your hand. We cannot rush to react and then make bad decisions and then we lose our wicket. We can't afford that. Sorry to extend the metaphor as far as I am, but having come from somebody who has been associated with cricket, I thought I should use the liberty to do so. But we really have to be. And understanding very clearly, if I may shift the metaphor, to engage my honourable colleague from the constituency of St. George. Somebody's going to come here soon that will sing that times are dangerous, cantankerous, serious, and sometimes we say it's only in the Father that we can put our trust. But even as we put our trust in the Father, we are going to work systematically to make relations with those countries. Canada, you've mentioned. For example, the Canadians have been very reticent in recent times, at least at the regional level, to enter into EPA-type economic partnership agreements. They've, we have the Caribbean and so forth, and that's run a course, and then you have to go back to WTO under the regional agreements clause to have a waiver, and all those things since the GATT was reformed. However, they have reached out to us in recent times. So that clearly is a segue from and into the conversation which Prime Minister Mark Carney is having about Canada rebuilding its relationship. And so we now have an opportunity to sit with them and to look at areas of cooperation in trade and elsewhere where we can build a relationship. That is what we have to do. Now, we are not going to throw as they say, the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. Our traditional allies are our traditional allies. Large markets for which we have to export. We draw tourists from them and so forth and so on. We will do so until such time as things settle down. But once we are in this area of uncertainty, working with like-minded countries and institutions to build partnerships and using everything that we have to use, every tool at our disposal. And I must tell honorable members, I say Prime Minister is the first diplomat of the country, the chief diplomat. All of us are envoys. Both we who work in foreign affairs and all the honorable members here. When you step out of Barbados to represent Barbados, you become a foreign service envoy, a foreign policy envoy for the country. And so we want to draw on every expertise, every knowledge, every intelligence to help us through this very difficult time so that we can position Barbados to take off when the dust settles, and the dust will settle. I hope I've been able to speak to you.
Thank you, Senior Minister.
Honourable Minister, you have 5 minutes to wrap up.
Actually, that was the wrap-up. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I won't delay the House any further with any more malformations.
Okay.
So with that, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 32 stand part.
The question is that Head 32 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do not report progress to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no.
The Chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
The Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of the House until tomorrow at 10 a.m., 4th of March, where we will, can you stop? Where we will commence with the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance as the next head.
The question is that this Honourable Chairman will be suspended until tomorrow, the 4th day of March, 2026 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until tomorrow, Wednesday, 4th of March, 2026 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.